I literally wrote in my notes, holy stigma, Batman. Okay. Hello friends, thanks for coming back. I have gotten a couple of requests from people to talk about this channel called Psych2Go. So that's what we're talking about today. I wanted to do like some actual research about the channel. So I watched 4 of the videos on their channel. I watched the most popular video, their most recent video, another one of their most popular videos, and then another video that was like recommended to me. Obviously this is not like a super comprehensive review because they have a fucking shitload of content on their channel, which we will talk about in a minute. But anyways, this is just kind of my initial impressions about the channel. There's a couple things that I want to talk about, so let's just get into it. Okay, so the first video that we're going to talk about is the most recent. It's called 7 Types of People That You Can't Help, which is like a really strong title to come out there with. So like I said, I took some notes. There's a couple things that I want to talk about. I'm going to play a couple clips for you guys and then we'll talk about them.
Ever tried to help people who only ended up hurting you in the end? All too often, you try to change the ones you love because you think you see the good in them that they can't see in themselves.
So this is something that I wanted to talk about. The actual quote from this is, you try to help people who don't want to help themselves. And I am frustrated that they presented this information in this way because it's not your job to be helping anybody unless you're literally in the helping profession. They kind of phrase this in a way that like, it's normal for everyone to be trying to fix other people, and these 7 types of people are just the exception that you can't help. But everybody else, like, by all means, please keep meddling in their lives and trying to fix them. And like, that's not a healthy model for our relationships. Regardless of whether you're in the helping profession or not, we shouldn't be trying to fix people. We can certainly voice our thoughts and feelings about how their behavior is impacting us, how it makes us feel, the way that we want our relationships to look, and what our boundaries are. But trying to tell somebody, you need to change because I've decided that this is wrong, that's not cool. And it's also not going to like work ever, regardless of whether they're one of these 7 types of people or not.
We make the mistake of assuming that everyone wants to be better and grow beyond where they are. But trying to help someone who can't even help themselves can feel a lot like taking 1 step forward and 10 steps back.
This is very stigmatizing language also.
Some people just don't change, especially if they don't want to. To help you identify them, here are 7 common types of people you can't help. Before we begin, we would like to mention that this video is for educational purposes only. It's not intended to target or shame anyone, but to help everyone be more aware of our tendencies. If you find yourself relating to the points we mention, remember that admitting our faults is the first step to correcting these self-defeating behaviors. Number 1.
So I appreciate the disclaimer, but the overwhelming theme for this video is just that there's a lot of stigmatizing language in it that I'm not a fan of. I am sad that they didn't include something in this video about boundary setting or about how we can love people and be part of their support system without taking personal accountability for their healing, because I think that would be really valuable. This video should have included some kind of conversation about like, okay, so you can't help these people, but what the fuck are you supposed to do then? Because from my perspective as a therapist, if one of my clients came to me and said, I don't think this type of person is ready to change or wants to change, then my question would be like, okay, so what do we do? Do you want to cut this person off altogether? Do you want to have a conversation about boundaries? Do you want to have a conversation with them about how, listen, this is happening and I'm not really a fan of this and I think we should take some kind and compassionate space from one another? Like, what does that look like for you? Because there's lots of different ways that you can handle this that doesn't include labeling someone as a person who will never change for the rest of their life. They're stuck this way forever, so just kick them out of your life. It's like a little bit much, in my opinion. Okay, let's look at the other video. This one is called What Your Love Style Says About Your Childhood. I have lots of thoughts about this video.
When it comes to relationships, everyone has their own way of showing love. Sometimes, these behaviors and thought processes can be negative rather than positive. According to a study, children who had a secure relationship with their parents growing up tend to have better interpersonal relationships later on.
Okay, so let's talk about that. First of all, I love according to a study, like which study, by who, when was it done, where did you find it? Give me some context, please. So I looked at the actual study that they linked in the description. It's from like 2001. So typically we're looking for research within the last 10 years if we're trying to prove a point about a current behavioral or scientific phenomenon or behavior. So 2001 is like pushing it a little bit in my opinion. But the other thing that I found interesting about this study, it's only one. Typically, again, if we're wanting to make statements about especially behavior patterns in human beings as a whole, really what we want to be looking for is like a meta-analysis, a randomized controlled trial, something that is longitudinal, so it's occurred over 20, 30 years, like a very, very long-term study. And we're also looking for a large sample size. This study does not do any of those things. All of that information aside, there's a direct quote from the study that directly contradicts the thing that they just said. I'm gonna read it to you. Therefore, although there seems to be high overlap of the concepts of attachment and parenting, it is clear that parenting styles do not influence either a person's ability to be intimate or their perception of other people's relationship abilities. They literally linked a study as evidence to prove their point that disproves their point. Don't love that. The point that I'm making is this study is not great, and it also contradicts the point that they're trying to make for the whole concept of this video. So, not the best.
Dr. Milan and Kay Yurkovich determined that there are 5 different love styles that often are determined by your childhood.
Let's talk about Dr. Milan and Kay Yurkovich, shall we? Dr. Milan and Kay Yurkovich are a married couple, but they are also very religious, and they're religion-informed counselors. Dr. Milan has a master's in biblical studies, was a pastor and a counselor for a religious counseling center in California. I am frustrated by the fact that this person is calling themselves Dr. Milan, sort of insinuating that they have a high level of education when their degree is in biblical studies and not in something like counseling, marriage and family therapy, social work, psychology, psychiatry, nothing like that. So again, that's a little bit sus to me. So Kay Yurkovich is his wife, which she does actually have a relevant degree. She's an LMFT, although she did earn it in the 90s, and it's unclear whether she's still licensed or not. But all of the information on their website is basically just their opinion. They kind of made up this idea about the 5 love styles and just like asserted it as truth. They don't seem to base this on any type of research or like really relevant factual information at all. Their website is kind of circular. Anything that you click really just takes you back to the page that encourages you to take their quiz or to buy their stuff. So I'm not really going to critique the 5 love styles or anything in this video. I don't agree with this concept. I don't like this. So not a big fan of this video either. For the record, I did watch the whole video, by the way. I'm just not going to critique it on the channel because I don't want to spend like 8 minutes watching it with you guys only to say the same thing. So one of the other videos that I watched is called 7 Common Dream Meanings You Should Never Ignore. Excuse, that was rude. While therapists are typically the people who hear a whole lot about the dreams that people have, we're not really given any kind of formal education about how to interpret dreams. There's not really a factual or scientific way to do this, so we don't really talk about it. In my opinion, it's not super duper useful to overanalyze and, you know, spend a lot of time trying to interpret meaning from dreams. This is not like really therapy related, but it was one of the more highly viewed videos on the channel, so I figured I'd watch it.
Although there's no scientific evidence to prove that dreams hold special meaning, for many years they have been studied to promote better self-awareness and to help us understand what's bothering us in our everyday lives.
And it's not to say that you can't do this. I think it's pretty fair if you're having dreams about betrayal and everyone in your life betraying you. Maybe there's some fear or like some trust stuff going on in your life. But again, like they said, there's no scientific information to really support this.
According to Suzanne Bergman, a social worker and dream specialist, dreams are a universal language, creating often elaborate images out of emotional concepts.
So this is where things really started to go south for me. My ears perked up when I heard that there was a social worker talking about dreams in this like very matter-of-fact way. So I was like, okay, I'll go to the description. I'll see what research that they've linked or, you know, who is this person? There's nothing. There's nothing in the description about this. I don't know if that's an error. Like I said, I only watched these 4 videos, so I'm not sure if that was an error or maybe this is like an earlier video, but I don't like that. If you're going to talk about this person, according to their research, that's what our video is based off. You need to have that in the description available for people to see. This one is not particularly mental health related, so I don't really feel the need to rake them over the coals about this. But again, really don't like that they're not including the sources that they're mentioning in the videos. That to me is suspicious. Okay, in this last video, I saw that this was a recommended video for me and I was like, what the fuck? This is called 14 Ways to Tell If Someone is Suicidal, which seems like a real bold topic to make a video on for YouTube. So let's talk about this really quick and then we'll sort of recap.
Suicide, the act of taking your own life. A horrific act, but sadly a common occurrence.
So I don't like that they said that. I literally wrote in my notes, holy stigma Batman. I don't like that we're calling suicide a horrific act, because suicide is incredibly sad and there is a lot of emotion that is attached to this topic. So I see what they're getting at, but when we call something horrifying or like disgusting, like that carries a lot of stigma. People who struggle with suicidality or die by suicide are not horrible people. They're not horrifying. They didn't make a horrifying choice. They were people who were struggling and people who needed help. And so I don't like that.
Every 40 seconds, someone dies from suicide. That's 1 million people per year. Whatever your experience with suicide is, it's very important to understand the signs of suicidal behavior.
So I don't like this either, because this, in my opinion, is really putting the onus on regular Joe Schmo to be like on the lookout for suicidality. And like, yes, it's important to be checked in with our loved ones and the people in our lives and making space for them to talk about how they're feeling and if they're not okay, to validate the fuck out of that. But I don't like types of videos like this, because it's like making a boogeyman out of a very real and very serious mental health issue that already has enough stigma around it as it is. In my opinion, like, this could be really harmful because, first of all, I don't agree with all of the signs that they mention in here anyways. We will talk about that in a moment. But second of all, this video suffers from the same condition as the first one, where, okay, great. So even if I have identified that someone is exhibiting all 14 of these signs, which also, what the fuck is with the 14? Why can't we just do 15? Now what? They don't give any kind of useful information about how to appropriately proceed. And we know from the research that the way that we approach and support a person who is struggling with suicidality is incredibly important. Because if we shame them, if we word our conversation in such a way that we make them feel shamed or they feel stigma around it, they will clam up and not talk to you about it. So there is a lot of reliable and wonderful information about how to be a safe person for someone who is struggling with suicidality. I'm happy to link that in the comments. There's actually trainings that you can take. I've taken one as a mental health provider, but there's also trainings that you can take just as like a regular person. But we don't want to just tell people like, look for these signs and like, goodbye. No, just identifying the signs of suicide is not in and of itself helpful. Okay, yeah, let's talk about this, because they talk about self-harm in this video and I want to address this.
Sign number 10, self-harm. Self-harm is one of the biggest signs that someone might be suicidal.
That's not fucking true. We know from the research that self-harm and suicide are not inherently linked. People who self-harm can be self-harming for a variety of different reasons, but it is not always intrinsically linked with a desire to die. Self-harm and suicide can absolutely be linked, but it's not like an irrefutable truth that they are always linked together. And it is so frustrating when people perpetuate this myth, because self-harm is a very, I don't want to say very common, but it's not an uncommon coping strategy. And not that I'm in any way glorifying or encouraging self-harm. Of course, if you're struggling with self-harm, please, if you're able to, talk to a therapist, find a professional to help you move through that. But again, just because someone is struggling with self-harm does not mean that they inherently want to die. So yeah, there's a lot of misinformation in this video, which is frustrating to me, because unlike the dreams video and the love styles video, this information actually has the potential to be very harmful and very dangerous. So I am frustrated that, again, there are no relevant or useful sources in the description, and they're sharing this information in what I would hope is good faith, but is still incorrect and, again, potentially really, really dangerous. I will link some sources in the description for you guys about the appropriate way, or like the most evidence-based way to approach a conversation with someone who is suicidal. Again, there are trainings and things that you can take, and I would highly encourage you guys to look into that if you're interested or at all affected by suicidality in your life. So let's kind of wrap up about this whole channel. Like I said, when I first found the channel, I didn't really think anything of it. I saw that they had a couple million subscribers and I was like, wow, good for them. That's nice that they're sharing mental health information. But after watching some of these videos, I have a weird feeling. If you don't know anything about 5-Minute Crafts or Blossom or all of these other like very clickbaity YouTube channels. Basically what's going on with these weird channels is that there's a parent company who hires people to create content for like 10 different YouTube channels, and they fucking churn out content like crazy. It's called content farming. They're very popular on YouTube and on Facebook especially because they're very clickbaity, they're very weird. If you've ever watched 5-Minute Crafts, you know what I'm talking about. Nobody wants to try and make a pair of high heels out of hot glue, but they know that people are gonna click on it because it's fucking stupid. And so they churn out this content with the express intent of just getting clicks, getting views so that they can collect the AdSense and hit the road. And I am not saying that that's what this is, but after looking at this channel, I do get those vibes from this content, because if you look at their homepage, they are really churning out a lot of content. The other thing about this that stinks, in my opinion, is that they have a website. And so I looked at it hoping to find a business owner, a CEO, a director, something. There's nothing. There does not appear to be anybody on staff with relevant degrees or certification or mental health expertise. So I'm curious about where they're getting all of this information. It really seems, after watching the videos that I did, that there's probably someone who is looking through the internet for other mental health professionals, research and perspectives, and they take that information and turn it into one of these little illustrated videos. It's unclear whether they're getting permission from these mental health professionals before they do this or not, which is like a whole issue about intellectual property and all of that kind of stuff. I don't even like Dr. Milan and Kay Yurkovich, but I'm curious about whether they know their relationship counseling approach is being given away for free. This is like a little bit suspicious in my opinion. Again, I want to be clear, if this channel or information is useful or helpful or fun for you, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. That's totally cool. You're welcome to consume whatever content you want to. I do want to encourage you to be cautious and to use a discerning eye in terms of the information that you're consuming, just because not all of the information that they share seems to be based in fact. So this was an adventure. I'm really curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are. I would love to know if you have watched their channel, if you like their videos, like what's your opinion about it. I'm always open to the idea of being wrong, so I would love for some of you to weigh in if you are frequent viewers of their channel also. So yeah, if you guys like this video, like the video, let me know if there's anything else that you guys want me to review or talk about. I would love to do that too. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. We do lots of therapist react stuff here, which is always a fun time, and I would love to have you stay. With that said, share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow, and I will see you guys next Saturday. Okay, bye.